Hello, I'm Cheryl McCarthy of the City University of New York. Welcome to One to One. I'm pleased to welcome Ruth Messinger, President of the American Jewish World Service, to the program today. Hers is the leading Jewish human rights and development organization dedicated to realizing the human rights of women, girls, and LGBT people, and to ending poverty and strife in the developing nations. When we last talked with her, her organization was heavily involved in efforts to bring peace and stability back to war-ravaged Darfur. But her mandate has taken her from Darfur to Haiti to Southeast Asia to Latin America, with numerous stops in between. Today, we'll find out about the organization's newest initiatives, what its ongoing efforts have achieved, and what it views as the developing world's most pressing issues. Welcome.
Thank you very, very much, Cheryl. It's great to be back.
As I said, you were very heavily involved in Darfur the last time I talked to you because of the civil war and the genocide there. I believe you were also involved in efforts in Haiti after the earthquake. Are you still in Darfur, and what's the state of things there for them and for you?
Yeah, I would say that, the problems of the world, and particularly perhaps the problems in the developing world and the global south, don't get resolved easily. So the people in Darfur who were chased out of their villages and forced into camps because of the threat of genocide from their own government, many of them are still there. And our efforts in the last 4 years with many other organizations have been to try to promote peace in Sudan. It's a very tough proposition. We have had good support from the White House on this issue. The White House worked to create the referendum. South Sudan became a new country. But Darfur, which is the western part of Sudan proper, is still a tragedy. And the governments of South Sudan and Sudan have not fully made peace. And there's always a new problem. So sorry to say, but we are now anticipating a severe drought in Sudan, South Sudan, which will mean more people without enough food, possible spread of famine. So these efforts continue, and it's, of course, not easy to keep the attention of Washington focused on problems like that when they have so many other issues that they're also trying to deal with.
Right. I was trying to read up on the situation. It's a complicated one, but my sense is that at the root of it is this conflict between the Muslim Arabs, who were perceived as being favored by the government, and the black Christians and animists who felt that they were being discriminated against.
Well,
Is that how
that's the issue between, no, that's the issue between Sudan and South Sudan.
Okay.
That's gone on off and on for 15 years, and that's what led to the referendum and the creation of two countries.
Right.
The puzzling thing about Darfur is that they are Muslim. So this
Okay.
was a Muslim against Muslim genocide, probably from a Western point of view best understood, and I'm sure this is imperfect, as Muslims who were very connected to the Arab world and to their Arab roots, beating up on Muslims who felt more as if they were Africans. So,
Okay.
but it's a commentary on how hard it is for people to get along.
What's needed in your view?
Well, it's very, very complicated because, I mean, I guess if I was going to be honest, this is not a president who is interested in peace, or so it seems. There's a border skirmish every day between Sudan and South Sudan. There's a lack of planning for this new drought. And there's no serious effort to convince the people who are living in internally displaced persons camps in Darfur, or who even went over the border into refugee camps in Chad, that they can actually come back and reclaim their villages. So it would take additional Western help and support, response to the drought. But there's a piece of me that thinks it's going to take a different leader who is ready to move his or her country toward a greater level of civil peace and democracy.
Has the United Nations been instrumental at all in alleviating the situation? And I mean, what does the continued situation in Sudan say about the efficacy of the United Nations?
Well, I think the UN and the US, as I said a minute ago, were very involved in trying to end the longest term civil war that you talked about by creating a new country. That doesn't happen every day.
Right.
And there is a new country. But both the US and the UN allowed South Sudan to be created, good news, before there was an agreement on the border. But, you know, in many of the places in the world where American Jewish World Service works, a huge piece of the problem is resources, and not the way you might think. The more natural resources there are, the more intense the fighting. Who's going to control the minerals in Congo? Who's going to control the underground water that's now been discovered in Kenya and Uganda? And in the case of Sudan, the oil fields are in South Sudan, and the oil pipeline runs across the country of Sudan. So whose resources are they?
Right. Are you still involved in Haiti?
Yeah, I would say in Haiti much more even than Darfur and Sudan, because in Haiti we received a lot of money after the earthquake, but it was a country that we were already working in. That's our strength. We have long-term relationships with over 500 grassroots groups in more than 19 countries. Groups that have indigenous leaders who have their own vision of social change, who are working to fill in the blank, keep girls in school, strengthen farming production, try to get land title. And so in Haiti, a lot of additional resources came to us because of the earthquake. But we made a commitment, yes, to do some immediate relief, but mostly to use the dollars that we'd gotten to do a 5-year plan with the people of Haiti to address the problem of building a strong civil society, which is really the underpinning of a democracy, to address this issue in Haiti, which is just beyond our minds. Nobody knows who owns any piece of land. So you have over 1 million people now, I think now down to about 200,000, still in shacks and tents in public parks because they lost their homes during the earthquake.
So everybody's a squatter,
Yeah, exactly. But the question is, if you want to go back, or if somebody wants to come in and put up, longer-term, low-cost housing on a 4-acre plot, nobody knows who owns those 4 acres. And so both the government, which is not very strong, and some of the wealthier, and it's said much more corrupt families in Haiti, exert control, and people sort of never can get a place to stand up strong. One other thing, we've been working in Haiti and will continue to work in Haiti on the problem that's increasingly become our focus for the next several years, and that is gender-based violence, the right of women, girls, and LGBT populations to be free of the violence that permeates their lives.
In Haiti?
It's every place.
Okay.
But it's an issue that came up in Haiti, came up rather dramatically in the camps. I get to go to these countries and meet unbelievable local people. And shortly after the earthquake, I was there about a year after the earthquake, a group of adolescent girls in the camps told me, we figured out a solution to the attacks by which they meant, sort of the men grabbing them in the camps. I said, what's the solution? We wear 3 pairs of blue jeans. So, I met the president of Liberia 2 years ago, and I was with a group of donors, and they asked her, she's the only democratically elected woman president in Africa, Ellen Johnson Sirleaf. They asked her, what are the biggest problems in Liberia? Now, this is a country that had a 14-year civil war. And she said, infrastructure, education, and rape.
Yeah, yeah.
So the statistics are unbelievable. 1 in every 3 women in the world will be raped, abused, or in some way sexually threatened in her lifetime. And in some of the countries where we work, it's 7 out of 10.
Wow. Do you see progress being made in Haiti? The problems have seemed so intractable over the decades. Do you see progress being made there?
Yes, but I say that with caution. So I have a really interesting view of the world from this work, because we work in communities where people are making change, where an organization figures out a way to do a massive amount of microfinance, or to teach farmers new ways to retain water so that they can grow food. So I see that kind of progress in communities, in parts of different countries where people are changing their lives. The broader picture is always more difficult. And in Haiti, as you said, the government wasn't very strong before the earthquake. The government sustained something that we couldn't imagine in this country. 1/3 of the cabinet ministers and the legislature were killed. And it's a very unstable and corrupt country to begin with, so the rebuilding does not go smoothly. And despite the best efforts of some Western governments and the United Nations, from our point of view at least, too much of their help is top-down, and it doesn't provide sufficient support to the people who are actually making change on the ground, to the woman who's running a women's organization and standing up against gender-based violence. So that's the problem.
Now your organization actually provides funding to some of these grassroots organizations, correct?
That's right. We have a in-country consultant in every country. In some places where we do more work, we have a couple. We have a grant-making staff at our New York office, which is right near where we are right now. And they jointly find these projects that are making social change and then make grants to them. Sometimes we start an organization with the smallest grant you can imagine. We once started an organization in Zimbabwe that was a light bulb in someone's mind with $2,000. That's an organization that's now getting $30,000 a year. We stay with organizations a long time, 5, 6, 7, 8 years, because very few other people and no governments are funding at the grassroots level, and it's where we see change occurring. So yes, we provide funding. We try very hard to provide funding for the general operating costs of the program. We're very serious about fiscal accountability. We work with the groups to design effective monitoring and evaluation, but we stay because we see change being made.
And is it
that's
on the,
very hope-filled.
Is it on supporting the grassroots organization? Is that where where the bulk of your successes, accomplishments occur?
I would say that's like half our work, is to do this grant making, to stay with these grantees, to help them think strategically, get support for capacity building. But I want to just emphasize, more than almost any other funder that I know, we learn from them. So we're not telling them, oh, this is the year of literacy, or do this way. We're really listening and learning. There's another piece of our work, and that is in this country, in America. We work to mobilize our community and its allies to put pressure on the US government, because there are many issues of United States policy, law, budget, and practice, which if we can change them a little bit, make a huge difference to the people on the ground. So case in point, this new campaign of ours, it's called the We Believe campaign, which is about calling on our government to do everything possible to end gender-based violence, to end hate crimes against LGBT populations, and to empower girls all over the world to end forced early marriage. That work is our domestic work, and that requires getting attention to our website, mobilizing people not just to sign petitions, but to call on members of Congress. And right now our target is something called the International Violence Against Women Act. Now, it is very hard for me to tell you that the Congress of the United States is not inclined to pass an act that has no fiscal implications and simply would put our government on record as being opposed to violence against women and girls. But it's failed the last 2 times.
That's
sponsors
amazing.
brought it up, and we're now working in the House. The good news is it has 56 sponsors, and 9 of them are Republicans.
Why hasn't it passed?
Nobody knows what the issue is. I think there are people who, in the Congress now, I think you see some of them in their speeches, some of them who don't care what happens outside our borders, and some of those same people and others who are like, government shouldn't have any role in any of these matters. But it's appalling. It's appalling. There are 10 million girls a year under the age of 18 who are forced into marriage. And that's not only a question of denying a girl the right to make her own decisions. We're talking about 9-year-olds being married to 40-year-olds for a price. And in some of these instances, in some of these countries, sexual relations begin immediately, and it destroys the health and then the life of the young woman.
Right. We're going to take a short break. Then we'll be back with more with Ruth Messinger, President of the American Jewish World Service, after the following message. Welcome back to One to One. I'm Cheryl McCarthy of the City University of New York, and I'm talking with Ruth Messinger, President of the American Jewish World Service. Before the break, we were talking about how women and girls are catching hell all over the world. Have you seen any progress in the area of human rights for women and girls in developing countries?
Again, Yes. First of all, I always like to say this, there's one country in the world in which more than half of the legislature is women, and that country is Rwanda. So there's a story. Complicated, of course, but it's a change. But more to the point, where we work, we've seen an organization that we've supported for a long time in Senegal lead the fight from the grassroots, from the bottom up, against female genital cutting. We have areas where women have won the right to be able to stay in school. You know, the story of Malala, the woman in Pakistan, but that's an issue all over the world. And we're now, with this new focus on ending child marriage, again, understand, I don't represent an organization that goes in and says, oh, stop this practice. We're going into places where mothers, daughters, and sometimes men are saying, this is not helping us. This is, you know, denying individuality to these young girls and destroying their health. And by the way, it's hurting the economic and employment options for the country to sort of siphon off a whole portion of its population. So they're ready to start making change. They're looking for ways to make change.
And you tap that.
Well, they're doing it.
Right.
They tap us.
They tap you.
For support. We support Lema Bowie, who's the woman who single-handedly organized women in Liberia to end the 14-year civil war seriously by organizing a sex strike. And she continues to teach.
You should think more about that globally.
Yeah, she continues to teach women and girls how to become peacemakers, how to raise their voices, how to demand their rights. So the best thing about my work around the world is that we constantly see examples of successful social change. And increasingly, these organizations are bonding with each other. They're forming movements. They're fighting in Kenya for the rights of adolescent girls. There's a group in Kenya that we support called Fortress of Hope Africa, and they have become, I think, easily for them, like hip-hop geniuses. So they have music and dance that's all about teaching boys to respect girls. And because their music is good, they've become like an American Idol type phenomenon. So their music is played all over Kenya, and their lyrics are about social change.
Okay. I know one new area that you've moved into is the fighting human rights abuses against lesbian, gay, bisexuals, and transgenders. There seems to be this wave of anti-gay feeling in African countries recently. I particularly think of Uganda and Nigeria. Why?
Well, it's really complicated. So yes, we work very hard on the issue of LGBT rights, and I would say that we're, in this issue, we're way in the lead, literally in finding these groups, because very often the groups themselves, although they're fighting for their rights, are nervous about being too visible. We've become a friend to many of those groups in most of the 19 countries where we work. And let's look at the statistics for a minute. There are 77 countries in the world where homosexual behavior is punishable by time in prison, and in 5 of them by being put to death. So the situation is horrendous, but you are correct. It's gotten worse. Some of the instigation for this, I'm sorry to say, is from American religious evangelical leaders who are promoting the introduction and passage of this legislation. Some of it seems to be a kind of opportunity, this is really horrible, but for the presidents of these countries to say, like, oh, we don't care what they're doing in the US, we're opposed to this. Some of it comes, Cheryl, from misinformation. So I know in Uganda, where we've worked most closely and intently over the last 5 years trying to stop this new legislation, that people are told that homosexuality is equivalent to pedophilia. So they're told, you have to support these laws and these legislators because it's the only way to protect your children.
Which the way it was in the United States for many years, the same argument.
Right, exactly, ridiculous. So, you know, again, if you are dealing with these issues, your viewers should pay attention to our website and look at webelieve.ajws.org, because it's an opportunity to get involved. But on the LGBT issue, we'll see what happens, but there are now challenges to this Uganda law in Uganda, being led by the groups some of which we fund. There are challenges in this country to the notion of Americans being able to go overseas and spread misinformation and denials of human rights. And we will stay with the groups in Uganda that we've been supporting for really a decade now as they wage this battle.
Are there some countries that you've been in where you decide, okay, or I don't know, countries, villages, cities,
Right.
where you've decided, well, we've done as much as we can do here. Now we got to leave it to the people here, or other. I assume
Yeah.
there are some places you don't go into because it's just too dangerous to
Right.
go there.
So the United Nations divides the world into a third rich, a third middle, and a third poor. There are about 60 countries in the lowest third, and we only work in 19 of them. We were involved in a few others. In most cases, when we, as you say, left, it was after several years, and it was really in order to consolidate our work in places, but yes, in places where we thought we could have a lot of impact. We also pulled out of some countries that by our standards were doing significantly better. So we're no longer working, for example, in Ghana or South Africa. Are there problems? There are thousands of problems. But there are thousands of problems in the U.S.
Right.
The point is there are resources there. We did leave some countries where we felt we had done all we could, and the situation on the ground was such that we just couldn't get staff there. We couldn't get volunteers there.
For example?
Couldn't get Afghanistan, Pakistan.
Yeah.
But India and Uganda are the countries where we do the most work. So it varies. We're reasonably intrepid. And we know that in every one of these countries, whatever the nature of the government, there's really good work being done at the grassroots. We regrettably phased out our work in Ethiopia because the Ethiopian government passed a law that said that basically outside funders couldn't support human rights work. So that was sad. The good news was we'd worked with about a handful of groups there for 6 or 7 years,
Right.
so we could plan a careful phase out.
Are there some countries whose problems resonate with you more than others? I know it's hard for a mother to pick a child.
Right,
but
it's very hard. Personally, the answer to that is yes, and I'm going to name 3 countries. I'm very proud of our work in India because most Americans have decided that India is fine. You know, they see at the Taj, they see, or they've been to the 5-star hotels. They know their call center is based in India. But India is a gigantic country with immense poverty. Amartya Sen, the Indian economist, says everyone in India has a cell phone, but only half the people have toilets. So I feel strongly that it's important for a human rights and development group to keep working in India. Beyond that, I'm personally attracted to our work in 2 countries, Cambodia and Haiti, because I know in my lifetime that my government created significant parts of the problems in those countries.
Right.
So that's just personally. When you're in Cambodia, we're doing all kinds of comprehensive land rights work in Cambodia. But Cambodia government has a good policy, which is that people with disabilities can get a special license to be booksellers and magazine sellers in the marketplaces. So when you're in the marketplaces, you see those people, and of course, every single one of them is the victim of an American landmine.
And a lot of people don't realize that the United States, I think, occupied Haiti militarily for 19
Over and
years.
over again.
And propped up a lot of really lousy governments there.
Exactly right.
I understand from your website that people who are, I guess, individuals who are interested in these issues can travel with you to different countries.
So there are 2 major ways for people to get involved with us right now. One is I run study tours for donors. So people who have the capacity to give us some money can also pay to travel with me to a particular country where they'll see over the course of a week 5 or 6 different projects of different sizes, of different types. And those are advertised on our website. I'll be taking people to Guatemala in June and to India in November. That's one way to get involved. Second way to get involved, which is not about travel, is we're desperately hoping to build a strong advocacy, activist voice in this country to mobilize and organize people to pass the International Violence Against Women Act, to let the U.S. government and, in a timely fashion, the Ugandan government know our attitude on LGBT rights. And so just going to the website again, allows you to sign a petition, get on the mailing list, and learn about what's going on. In some cities, last piece of this, we do recruit people to be part of a year-long fellowship, which includes a piece of time overseas, and that information is also on the website.
And I mean, a fellowship, do you give them money to go overseas, or do they pay to go overseas? How does that work?
We basically cover most of their costs.
Okay.
They're obligated to us for a night a month for the whole year, and then a 10-day trip, which is largely subsidized.
It's the American Jewish World Service. Where does most of your money come? Does it come from wealthy Jews? Does it come from Jewish congregations? Does it come from foundations?
All of the above.
Okay.
It comes from individual donors who give us everything from $1 a year to several $1 million. Thank you very much for the larger donations, but the small ones matter tremendously. Some money comes from congregations and Jewish organizations around the country. Some money comes from foundations, and some money comes from corporate foundations that simply like the nature and shape of our work on the ground. We've been very lucky for 6 years to be a beneficiary of the money that Nike has put into helping adolescent girls around the world.
Did you get any money from Bloomberg?
We have had a small annual gift from the Bloomberg Foundation every year since I've been.
Okay. We've got about a minute left. So where are you off to next?
I'm actually taking a small group of people to Haiti. I've only been to Haiti twice since the earthquake because in many instances it seemed better to use our resources to send the staff there that could support the staff we have on the ground that could help the grantees. But I was there about 2 years ago, so 2 years into the earthquake, and I'm very happy that I'm going back at the end of this month to see what has been done and what still needs to be done in order to strengthen what in Haiti are about 40 small grassroots groups that are our allies, fighting gender-based violence, fighting for agricultural sustainability, and fighting for land rights.
Sounds like the world's best job.
I love it.
You get to see a lot of bad things, but a lot of good things.
A lot of hope.
Done. Okay. We're out of time. I want to thank Ruth Messinger, President of the American Jewish World Service, for joining me. For more information about this organization, please visit their website at AJWS.org. For the City University of New York and One to One, I'm Cheryl McCarthy. If there are any people you'd like to hear from or topics you'd like us to explore, please let us know. You can write to me at CUNY TV, 365 Fifth Avenue, New York, New York, 10016, or you can go to the website at cuny.tv and click on Contact Us. I look forward to hearing from you.